Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a kind-hearted girl named Cinderella. She was gentle and beautiful, inside and out. Sadly, after her mother passed away, her father remarried a woman with 2 daughters of her own. This woman, Cinderella's stepmother, was cruel and jealous, as were her 2 stepsisters. They despised Cinderella's beauty and grace, and they forced her to work as a servant in her own home. Cinderella's days were filled with endless chores, sweeping, scrubbing, and cooking for her stepmother and stepsisters. They dressed in fine clothes and enjoyed luxuries, while she wore tattered rags and slept in the cold attic. Yet, despite the cruelty she endured, Cinderella remained kind and hopeful, always believing that things would one day get better. One day, a royal messenger arrived in the village with exciting news. The king had invited all the young women in the land to a grand ball at the palace. The prince, who was handsome and noble, was searching for a bride. Every eligible maiden was invited to attend, and the prince would choose his future queen from among them. Cinderella's stepsisters were thrilled and spent days preparing their finest gowns and accessories. They mocked Cinderella, telling her she could never go to the ball looking like a servant. But deep in her heart, Cinderella longed to go to the ball too, just to experience the joy of being free and happy, even if only for a night. When the day of the ball finally arrived, Cinderella helped her stepsisters dress, fixing their hair and adjusting their gowns. As they left for the palace, she was left alone in the house, tears welling in her eyes. All she wanted was one chance to join in the celebration, but she had no dress, no carriage, and no way to get there. Just as Cinderella wept, a bright light filled the room. In front of her appeared a kind and gentle fairy godmother. "Why are you crying, dear?" the fairy godmother asked. "I wish I could go to the ball, but I have nothing to wear and no way to get there," Cinderella replied. With a wave of her magic wand, the fairy godmother smiled and said, "Don't worry, my dear. You shall go to the ball." In an instant, she transformed Cinderella's ragged clothes into a stunning gown of shimmering silver and gold. On her feet appeared delicate glass slippers that sparkled like stars. The fairy godmother then turned a pumpkin into a magnificent carriage, and nearby mice into fine horses. Cinderella was speechless with gratitude. But before she left, the fairy godmother warned her, "Remember, my magic will only last until midnight. At the stroke of 12, everything will return to how it was. So be sure to leave the palace before then." Cinderella promised to remember, and with a heart full of joy, she set off to the ball. When she arrived at the palace, everyone was awestruck by her beauty and grace. The prince, captivated by her charm, immediately asked her to dance. They spent the entire evening dancing and talking, and Cinderella felt like she was in a dream. But as the night wore on, Cinderella lost track of time. The clock struck midnight, and in a panic, she remembered the fairy godmother's warning. Without a word, she dashed out of the palace, leaving the prince bewildered. As she ran, one of her glass slippers slipped off her foot, but she didn't stop to retrieve it. She jumped into her carriage, which quickly turned back into a pumpkin as the magic faded away, and she arrived home just as everything returned to normal. The next day, the prince was determined to find the mysterious girl who had captured his heart. All he had to go on was the glass slipper Cinderella had left behind. He sent his servants throughout the kingdom with the slipper, declaring that he would marry the girl whose foot fit perfectly into it.